So this is our live reaction to Donald Trump and Elon Musk beefing. Our thoughts on how to be content in life, talking about sales, talking about everything. We're just gonna film this and we'll see what happens. So should we start with Trump and and fucking Elon?
I was just thinking about your intro that then, bro, and the way you hop off a sales. You know, you asked that question a minute ago of like, you always want more. You know, the way you hop off like a sales call, then you're like, yeah, it didn't work out, X, Y, Z. It's very like detached. It's just taking that same thing to other places.
Yeah.
I feel like is the answer to that.
Yeah, that's true. You have to be detached, but at the same time, I feel like you can only move yourself away from things that don't necessarily have like a direct cause on what you're trying to achieve, because like the things that I want to do personally in my life, it's like I can't not attach myself to that. And then when I reach those things, it's like there's always going to be something else that personally I want to achieve. So I feel like life is just a mountain essentially that never stops going. Like you reach the top, there's another peak. You reach the top, there's another peak, and it's like, when does it stop? I don't think
it does, bro. Yeah.
It does, and that's the good thing, but also could you remember the meetings I did about the gap in the gain? Do you remember that? I think you were there. And that when I read that book, that was like a game changer for me. Dean recommended that to me. And I recommend anyone who's watching this to read that book, Gap in the Gain. Essentially, it's like a philosophy that explains the gap is where you are now and where you want to be, and the gain is where you started from and then where you're at now. And everyone lives in the gap. Like, I was explaining to these guys, I hit a milestone today, and I wasn't even happy because I want to hit another milestone. But reality, when I was fucking 17 and I hit this milestone, I would have been so excited, but like, now it's just another moment in the day. I'm sure like, have you had that recently where you've hit a milestone where you were like, didn't feel like you thought it would?
Yeah. And it always feels like it comes 2 years or something later. Like, damn, if I had this now, I'd be sick. And then 2 years later, you have it. It's like, bam.
What about you, Cam? You had that recently?
I think you have that all the time, bro. Like that thought of the gap in the game. Like George said, I wanted something 2 years ago and now I've got it. I'm like, fuck. I think you have that most days, right?
Facts. Yeah,
when we first started taking sales calls, doing what we're doing now, we would fucking be like, yes, get me there right away. Whereas I'm here now and I'm kind of like, what's next, bro? Like, this is cool, but like, yo, I want to take this even further. So I think you're always like wanting to do more. You're never really satisfied with where you're at or what you're doing.
It's not the same for everyone though. It's not the same for everyone.
No, it's not. And actually,
that's what I struggle with. Like,
no. I had a great experience with this. I can't lie, because when I was working on site as an electrician, and I started to see the other world, mainly through influencers and influencers earning money online. I didn't know anything about sales at this point. This is when I was pursuing influencing. I remember going onto site and I was trying to explain to these guys at work like this other life of earning money online through influencing, and I'd be trying to convince them, but they were just happy, bro. They were so happy with no, they weren't happy. Wrong word, because they were miserable every single day. They were just too comfortable. They were way too comfortable, and they didn't want the pressure of putting it outside of their comfort zone where the possibility of failure was there. Because they was comfortable of paycheck to paycheck. I know I'm going to get paid next month. Yes, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, but I'm getting by. And they was comfortable with that. They didn't want to push themselves outside of their comfort zone to see the other side. So they weren't happy. I never think anyone's happy, like, because, you know, earning more money, yes, it doesn't bring, you know, straight line to happiness, but it allows you other areas which brings happiness, like freedom, you know, location freedom, financial freedom, being able to help and support other people, that brings happiness. So it doesn't bring direct correlation, but it does in a roundabout way.
so you see how everyone's always chasing money, right? And then people who have money say, you know, money brings more problems. You know, what problems do you feel like they're saying? Like, well, what problems does money bring? I was thinking about that, and I feel like it's problems of you have more options, and it's kind of like option like paralysis, where you have so many options that creates problems for you, because you can essentially do whatever you want, and then that starts the cycle of having more problems.
It's more mental problems, I think, than anything, right? Obviously, you can talk about like taxes and government, whatever you want to say on that side, but I think it's more mental problems because what you were saying there is more options, right? That's a mental thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's just you being like, oh, I have all these options, right? But mentally, if you just, you know, blew that all out of the water, you'd be okay, right? And I also think it's mental problems of like, to earn more money, you've got to be doing more, right? You know, more output, more means more, you know, income, you could say. The more you do, the more you'll get back. So
I don't think that part's true though.
what, the more you do, the more you'll get back?
Yeah.
I believe so. If you work smart, of course, like you can do a whole lot of nothing. You know, you can run.
That's what I mean, because like people work so much harder than us, I think, and they just work a 9 to 5, bro. And they are like, my barber shop last week. This guy's cutting hair 12 hours a day, every day, working his ass off, and he can barely afford to provide for his family. And so I'd say he works harder than me, but just doing
the wrong thing.
the wrong thing.
It's the wrong machine.
So it's not necessarily a game of money's easy to get if you do the right thing. If you invest in the right stock, it's easy to get. It's just about your relationship and how you're wired to think about it.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. Let's take back that statement.
No, I'm not saying it like that, bro. But
I agree.
I'm just sharing what I think about it.
Yeah, working hard. What is working hard, would you say? How would you define that?
Working hard.
Like, is it just hustling every single day, putting in the hours? Or is it, you know, putting the hours in the right thing? Is that working hard? Is he just wasting time?
That's a good
more than working hard because he's not seeing the return? Because
it depends, because he's also, right, so this, just in this one scenario, bro, he loves cutting hair. I was chatting to him, he was so excited to cut my hair. And I said to him, look, do whatever you want, like have some freedom with it, flow with it, enjoy it. And he was saying about how he stopped cutting hair for 2 years. And he just had this like desire to go back, start cutting hair. And he loves every bit of it and pouring his energy into that.
So I feel like that's when you have to have that tough conversation, because at some points in life, I think I heard this from Nipsey Hussle, it's like, if your passion isn't making money, then it doesn't make sense. Because like, how can your passion not lead to like an affluent like life where you're comfortable in it with like money is just not an issue, because that's truly a passion, right? When you can do it without having to worry, right?
But for that guy, the barber, just thinking about it now, you were saying about it's their mindset. He could make more money doing his passion. He's in the wrong machine.
The skill
right?
set.
Here's a great example. There's barbers out there making way more money than him, doing exactly what they love. They just changed their machine. Instead of working in a barber shop, they was like, oh, actually, let me start posting content online. Now I'm making money through that. Oh, okay, now I'm cutting famous people's hair who's charging me, you know, 2K for a cut. They're still doing the same as him. They're still cutting hair, doing the thing they love. They just changed the vehicle that they was driving.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
That's true.
So it's also the vehicle, right? Because we love sales, but I could be working a 9 to 5 corporate job earning 30k. Yeah, but hey, I love phone call sales. Or I could be doing something else in a different vehicle, earning even more money, still doing the calls, enjoying sales.
At what point do you feel like someone has to stop their passion? You know,
I saw someone online the other day say this actually. I always used to say follow your passion. Since doing sales, I always used to say follow your passion. So I've tried some things that could have earned me quicker money, and I fucking hated it. And it made me realise, actually, no, I do need to enjoy. I do need to enjoy what I do to earn the money. I need to have fulfillment out of that. But someone online said the other day, he was like, screw your passion, because your passion could lead to a dead-end way of not earning money. Find some of the best vehicles are the ones that aren't as enjoyable, but they earn you loads of money. And I was kind of like, I don't know if that's sustainable though, is what I'm trying to say. Like doing something you don't even enjoy, but it brings so much money, you don't even care.
you can learn to enjoy it, and then eventually, then you. If you
like, tell me something you absolutely hate to do.
I don't know. Let's just say, for example, being a fucking. Let's say being a bin man.
Right, so if someone said to you, I'll pay you X amount of year to be a bin man, would you do it? Like, it's crazy amounts of money to do it. Would you do it? Or in your mind, knowing that, hey, I could do sales and I'll figure out a way to earn that money. It might take me a bit longer time, but I'm way more passionate about this. I'd probably choose the route that I'm more passionate about. No, it might take longer, okay, calm, but like, at least I'm doing something I enjoy and I'm confident that I will figure out how to earn more money from that. You know? That's how I kind of look at it.
Mm.
Yeah, but if you know that you're going to make it happen, then it's a different scenario. But I feel like there's so many people that don't know if they'll be able to do it.
And then that's a mindset issue then, right?
It always comes back to mindset, doesn't
That's
it?
a mindset issue. That's not like that's conviction. Nah, that'll work.
Yeah, I think
That's not having enough conviction in yourself.
without conviction, you are pretty much hopeless without yourself.
Not conviction in yourself, to be honest. Because I don't think you should do something you don't feel passionate about. Like if I at some point, which I don't.
It depends how old you are though as well.
Yeah, people get trapped, bro. It's difficult. I say this to my parents all the time. I'm like, why don't you guys just take a risk, do something different? Like when they first had us, and they're like, yeah, but then we had kids, we had family support for. I couldn't step out of my work because I was
That's
screwed.
why you got to do it when you're young, man.
Yeah, but I also do think that I think you can take risks when you get to that point, but it does definitely become a lot more constrained.
Yeah.
That was always my goal, like when finishing uni, was just remove every constraint possible. Money, location, all of it.
But then I also think as well that goes back to the mindset of how badly do you want it, right? Because let's say you're in the position of you're 40 years old, you've got a wife, you've got kids. So for instance, my dad, he couldn't quit his job, right, at all. He needs the money to come in for whatever XYZ amount. However, we know in this day and age, you can start a side hustle that doesn't really have much outgoings. You know what I mean? If you really wanted something bad enough, you could start something on the side if you found time to make it happen, to see proof of concept. So there is also that to it, right? Like you were saying about your parents, they wanted it bad enough to get out of that lifestyle. Put a couple hours aside a day and see what you can do. And see if there's proof of concept there.
Most people put themselves in a box where it doesn't become possible anymore, I think. And it's like the things we hear on the calls, bro. I remember having a conversation with someone, like a close friend, and they're like, yeah, I wish I had time to read books like you've got time, bro. I was like, what are you talking about? That's so stupid. That's not a question of time, bro. Like, just make the time for it.
Yeah.
And we do that on sales calls and objection handle. We're like, it's not you don't have the time, it's just you're not making the time for it, bro.
Yeah. I agree.
And I think it's the same with a lot of this stuff. People just put themselves in a box where they just think that it's not possible. Like, it's not possible for me to read a book because I don't have time. It's not possible for me to do X, I don't have the money. It's like the same box, and then people just get trapped.
Yeah, I think when I learned about reframes, that was really game changing. If you just positively reframe anything, your life just becomes like an abundant mentality.
And your brain does it automatically. Eventually.
Literally. That was definitely a game changer for me, understanding the power of positive reframes. Because even when you were on the call to your girl today, and she said about like how getting a job, like, isn't that crazy? He was like, well, what can you learn from that? It's like that one skill can change your life. And it's like, not many people choose to switch it that way. And I think that's a big problem. That if you understand just to switch any negative into a positive, you're good. And that's why I feel like, for me anyway, I feel like for all of us, like, there's never really been, in the last 3 years, like, any bad, negative moment that's been, like, detriment to us. Because it's just been like, all right, just reframe it. Just make something happen. What positive can I gain from this? And then you consistently just find a win. And that's all you really need. Just one small win. You keep stacking. And then that problem is no longer even a thing that you focus on anymore because it's just a thing of the past. So yeah, positive reframes are powerful.
It's like today with Trump, bro. We're all down big on money.
Yeah, let's talk about Trump and Elon. I think it's funny how, like, relationships are very, very transactional. Just in general in life, like
Trump and Elon.
Yeah, exactly. So Trump and Elon, they're in office together. They're trying to build something. Trump does something Elon doesn't like. They leave the situation, and now they're fighting. They're beefing each other because it's no longer a profitable relationship. So, and it's like I do think, obviously, you shouldn't have to beef and argue after the relationship, but it's very important that you make relationships and friendships with people that puts you in a positive.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a positive, transaction, because too many people will create relationships or keep doing things, keep working with people that creates a negative. And that goes back to what you're saying, doing something that you don't enjoy, because you shouldn't do that realistically, because a year or later you're going to be you won't even recognize yourself because you've been stuck in this negative for so long. And some people get stuck in that, they never get out. And then they make decisions that keep them going worse and worse and worse. So it's like, you do have to do something that you enjoy, but I don't think it has to be a passion. It's
I always put it like this, right? See, when I done my videos, at the time I enjoyed them. When I look back on them now, sometimes I'm like, why the fuck did I do that? So I always ask myself the question, let's say you're doing something you didn't enjoy, but you're like, oh, but hey, it's bringing the money. I always like the question of, if you're 40, would you ask the question to yourself, what if? If you're asking that question, probably should be making a change, right? Because the biggest thing in life is regret, right? Not doing something. You hear 80-year-olds be like, oh, I wish I'd done this, or I wish I'd done that, right? That's the only thing they speak about. I wish I went on that lad's holiday. I wish I, done this or done that. So if you're looking at a situation where you're in a job and you're not enjoying it, ask yourself the question, if I was 40, would I be asking the question of, what if I just actually tried that side hustle? If that's the case, fucking try it, do it, bro. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it.
But I feel like eventually you can always go back to what you truly want to do, but you have to have the capital and the resources to do that. So like, you have to do sometimes the negative stuff, but with the mindset that this negative is going to turn into a positive, because that essentially means it's just like a ladder. It's just a stepping stone. You're working your way there. And I can't remember the book I read, but it was by Robert Greene, and he spoke about vocations. And he just basically gave like a list of examples of like 40 different people who were, for example, Leonardo da Vinci. When he was a kid, he would draw. He would learn about like birds, and like he was very just interested about the biology of birds and how their wings and all of that stuff. And then eventually he got into drawing, and he started to paint and do all this stuff, sculptures, everything like that. And his sculptures became well known because they were so intricate and so real and so real. But that was only because when he was a kid, he understood like the biology of animals, humans. Like he really enjoyed that stuff, and that made his art what it is now. So it's like, when you're a kid, you're doing things that you enjoy, right? And that you don't know what you're gonna do. But eventually it makes sense. But you have to Leonardo da Vinci did a lot of other stuff during that time before he became an artist that didn't make sense or didn't align with what he was doing as a kid. So you have to do all this other shit eventually to get to a point where it all makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Where it all comes together. And so it takes a lot of time. Some people, for example, the guy who made KFC, he was like, I think he was like 67 or like 70 before he actually had KFC running, and it was actually a thriving business. But it just depends on the person. It takes time. You just can't quit. Do you know what I mean?
It goes back to positive reframes. Yeah. Like positive reframe something. If you think, like you were saying, if you think something right now isn't helping you, you're most likely wrong. There's probably skills that you can learn in every job where it would benefit you. It just doesn't benefit you now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sales stuff. Right, yes, you're not doing sales now, but there's so much, like you said to me the other day, that you still use now from that previous work. Yeah. Some people look at it like, fuck, like, I'm not even doing anything to do with sales now, like, fuck, that time was a waste or whatever it may be, whereas, you're like, oh no, I learned valuable skills there, bro, that now I'm reapplying.
I also think, Bob, what you were saying then is like, I think you mentioned this before, it's like, that the thing you're doing right now, right? You're doing your sales business, both of you, right? But that's not like the big thing that's going to happen at the end. It's going to be something that's bigger, something that's better, that this stuff leads you onto.
Yeah.
And it's all kind of like that. It's like you do all these little things like Da Vinci did or whatever you mentioned in the past, where they try something out, doesn't work, try something out, all this stuff accumulates, and then they get this big this big thing.
Yeah.
Spark goes at some point. It's like, that's the thing, bro.
Essentially compound interest.
Mm-hmm.
No, it all compounds, and then you basically have to. At one point, you're going to be in that negative where you're minus 100% on your investment. Do you buy or do you sell? Do you know what I mean? And if you buy, you keep buying, you keep buying, you keep buying, and you keep accumulating experience, life lessons. You just keep on pushing, keep on pushing. Eventually, that stock's going to go back up, and you are the stock. And the cool thing about this situation is you kind of predict the price. There's always going to be volatility, but if you just keep on buying, there's going to be enough volume, enough liquidity that you put in that's going to have to make the price go higher. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's really important to linking it back to stocks. I think stocks is a very good thing to understand, because just understanding compound interest, it kind of shows you that, all right, so this can turn into that just by doing nothing. Like 1 turns to 100, and then 100, 10% of that. It's like, it just keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. So it's like understanding, just investing in stocks is a great way to grow your capital, but also a good way to look at life as well. And that's why everyone here we're invested in the market, because it definitely has helped me just understand that like compound interest is key. And that's again another just a reframe. I'm just taking the investing market and putting that onto how I view myself. There's so many things in life that you can just reframe and think about how could I put this into myself. Like the sales guy that you were watching today, like he was doing a BizOps sale, reframe it into sales. It's like how he did that here, how can I adjust it and make it your own? I was watching a video today from this guy. He was saying the people who make like 8 figures a year, or just millions of dollars, they learn something and that someone else is doing, and then eventually they make it their own. And once you make it your own, that's when you can take it to the fucking masses and you can really scale it, because it's yours. No one else is doing it. You have that unique selling point. So you just have to really make yourself that USP. And just continue to just reframe everything that works.
Here's a weird thought.
Negative.
Is everything in life a reframe, if that makes sense? Or
Yeah.
someone's had to... So here's an idea. If someone came up with the first phone, and then someone was like, oh, now we can do this with a phone, now we have a touch, it's just a reframe of an idea already.
The laptop.
Does that make sense? Like, trying to like put it into that perspective.
For sure.
Any idea that someone's come up with, someone already came up with it, just a lower version. They've kind of
Reframed it. Because
into
the computer, Apple started with a computer, and then Steve Jobs reframed it into a fucking...
Musk saw people
iPad.
coding Facebook. He said, I reframe it, do it my own.
Yeah, exactly that.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, the DJI we're filming on, the first camera was built, it got smaller and smaller and smaller, and this guy was like, oh, fuck it, now I can turn into this little thing. You know what I mean? Like, people looking like you come up with a great idea. He just used someone else's and made it even better, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think that is a great way to put it. Like, life is just a reframe.
It's all it is, really.
And you can picture all of the frames and stack them all together.
Someone came up with the first idea of a door, and then someone came up, oh, let's put windows in the door.
No, actually think about it. You could stack every single Apple device in a frame, in a picture, and you'll see every reframe, every single one as it goes along. That's so jokes. Spitting bars.
I was trying to make a joke, so I could to the girls.
Should I stop it? I need a drink. I think that's great. Great fucking podcast.
What about hay fever?
No, it's just good to do a